What if I told you that every idea, every moral choice, and every question you ask about the world was first debated in sun-drenched squares of ancient Greece, setting the stage for 2,500 years of human thought? Our journey begins not with gods or kings, but with a question: what is truly real? This question led to a golden age where 5 monumental philosophies, Platonism, Aristotelianism, Stoicism, Epicureanism, and skepticism, tried to solve the puzzle of human existence, giving us a complete map for how to think and how to live. Our first great mind is Plato, the founder of the Academy, who believed that the world we see, touch, and hear is essentially a cheap copy, a shadow of something far more perfect. Imagine being chained in a cave, only able to see shadows cast by firelight. You would mistake those shadows for reality. Plato's famous theory of forms is that idea applied to everything. There is a perfect, eternal, unchanging form of beauty, a perfect form of justice, and a perfect form of a circle, existing in a reality beyond our senses. The chair you sit on is just a poor, temporary imitation of the perfect form of chair. Plato taught that the goal of philosophy, and the purpose of life, is to escape the cave, stop staring at the shadows, and use our minds to grasp these flawless forms. If we want to be truly good, we must focus on the perfect form of goodness, not the flawed examples we see every day. This philosophy gave purpose to intellectual pursuit. It encouraged us to look past the material world for ideal truths, pushing the Western mind toward abstraction, mathematics, and the contemplation of the soul. But what happens when a student of the ideal world decides the material world is worth investigating after all? We shift from Plato's ethereal realm of perfect forms to the down-to-earth observations of his greatest pupil. Aristotle was Plato's star student, but he fundamentally disagreed with his teacher. Aristotle essentially said, "Stop looking up at the sky for perfect forms. The answers are right here on earth." Instead of starting with ideal concepts, Aristotle started with observation. He was the first great scientist, cataloging species, studying physics, and classifying governments. For Aristotle, to understand anything, you must understand its telos, its purpose or function. The function of an acorn is to become an oak tree. The function of a knife is to cut. He argued that the unique function of a human being is to reason. Therefore, the goal of life, Eudaimonia, often translated as flourishing or living well, is achieved through excellent rational activity. This is where his idea of the golden mean comes in. Virtue, for Aristotle, isn't an abstract form. It's finding the balance between two extremes. Courage, for example, is the mean between the vice of cowardice to little feeling and the vice of recklessness too much feeling. Aristotle gave us the framework for logic, science, and practical ethics, showing us how to find purpose and live a balanced, meaningful life right here on the ground. However, the certainty and structure of the Greek city-states, the polis, which supported the work of Plato and Aristotle, began to crumble with the rise of Alexander the Great's vast empire. As the world grew bigger and more chaotic, people needed a philosophy, not just for the good city, but for the bewildered individual. This shift in focus brought us to the doorstep of the philosophical schools of the Hellenistic age, starting with a powerful commitment to self-control. The Stoics emerged in a world of war and political turmoil, leading them to ask, "How do I remain happy when everything outside of my control is collapsing?" Their brilliant answer was the dichotomy of control. They argued that everything in life falls into one of two categories: things you can control and things you cannot control. The Stoics taught that the core of all unhappiness is confusing these two categories. Worrying about traffic or a boss's mood is irrational, because they are externals. The only true good is virtue, because virtue is entirely internal and always under your control. By focusing intensely on your own mind and character, you build an inner citadel, a psychological fortress that no external misfortune can touch. Figures like Epictetus, a former slave, and Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, popularized this idea, proving that the philosophy could grant peace to anyone, regardless of their status. Their philosophy is a practical, rigorous training for enduring suffering and acting with duty. While the Stoics found peace through rigorous duty and acceptance of fate, another school emerging around the same time looked at the exact same chaotic world and concluded that the path to tranquility lay not in enduring hardship but in carefully avoiding it. When you hear Epicureanism, you might think of endless feasting and pleasure-seeking. That's the modern misunderstanding. For Epicurus, the goal of life was not wild hedonism, but ataraxia, absolute freedom from fear, and Aponia, freedom from physical pain. Epicurus taught that the greatest pleasures are easily accessible: good food, conversation with friends, and the absence of worry. He believed we should actively minimize pain and distress. This meant avoiding politics, getting rid of superstitious fears about the gods, and curing the fear of death. His school operated in a garden, a peaceful sanctuary where simple living and intellectual discussion were valued above all else. They believed a calm, gentle life, away from the stressful extremes of society, was the highest form of human happiness. Their philosophy gives us permission to prioritize inner comfort and the quiet enjoyment of small, reliable pleasures. We have explored the idealists who looked up, the pragmatists who looked down, the minimalists who looked inward, and the pleasure seekers who looked for calm. But what if all of them, from Plato to Epicurus, were fundamentally wrong? Our final school took that very question and made it the centerpiece of its entire worldview. The skeptics, following Pyrrho, looked at the intense arguments between the Stoics, Epicureans, and others, and concluded something profound. All human knowledge is uncertain. If wise people keep disagreeing, how can anyone truly know the objective truth? Since our senses are unreliable, our reasoning is flawed, and our assumptions lead to endless conflict. The skeptics decided the only path to peace was radical, utter suspension of judgment, or epash. They practiced the art of not knowing, refusing to commit to any belief about the ultimate nature of things. If you don't commit to a belief, you can't be proven wrong, and you can't get passionately angry or distraught when your worldview is challenged. Their goal of tranquility, ataraxia, was achieved through intellectual surrender, giving up the stressful quest for certainty. While this might sound passive, it was a practical tool for reducing anxiety and achieving a calm acceptance of ambiguity. From Plato's eternal forms to the skeptic's eternal doubt, these 5 philosophies represent the essential, timeless paths humanity can take when trying to build a good life. Whether you seek virtue in your soul, purpose in your labor, peace in your character, or calm in your garden, the ancient Greeks laid the groundwork for your search. If you found your path to wisdom in these ancient ideas, please hit that like button and subscribe to join us as we continue to explore the great thinkers who shaped our world.